Hello and welcome. This is Building the Premier Accounting Firm. It's a podcast dedicated to helping you have a successful accounting, bookkeeping, and tax business. I'm Roger Knecht, and in this episode, you'll expect to hear things that this show is dedicated to help you accomplish, which is offering quality accounting services competently and confidently. In the show, we actually focus on things that are emphasizing marketing strategies that are effective for accounting professionals, efforts that you can actually use to inform and educate your clients to help them make more educated business decisions to run their companies, and at the same time, helping you with things such as pricing strategies, client onboarding processes, client retention strategies, and most importantly, things that you can do to become a true accountrepreneur, working on your business, and most importantly, getting paid what you're worth. Today's episode, we actually have an excellent guest, someone that I'm excited to introduce. It's Veronica Sagastume. She happens to be someone that I'm sure you're going to find interesting because she was an ex-corporate CFO turned content marketing strategist with a passion for helping accounting, bookkeeping, and tax business owners create content to increase their visibility on social media and grow their business online. After 20 years of a corporate career as an accounting and finance executive in Silicon Valley and the San Francisco Bay Area, Veronica faced a personal life event which led to her making a bold decision to trade in her corner office for a home office. In 2011, Veronica left that CFO position to start her own consulting practice to work with startup companies as their business consultant. Fueled by her experience, Veronica skyrocketed her practice to a quick success. In fact, in 2016, she ventured online to help other accounting, finance, and tax business owners learn how to show up online with stronger content, a marketing strategy to attract and connect with clients. Helping them to show up like other experts, they're actually making now a greater impact, increasing their online visibility, and growing their business online is her primary vision and goal. Veronica has built a thriving consulting and coaching business from the comfort of her own home and is excited to share her journey. So, Veronica, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Roger. I'm excited to be here.
Well, I can definitely say that with your story there, I know everyone's interested. So we're just going to jump into this and really find out a little bit more about you and what we can be doing to work on our businesses. So let's start with, you were a CFO and you were working in the corporate world. Tell us a little bit about that background. Help us understand what you were doing then before that life-changing moment.
Oh, absolutely. So my career had taken me to work with a lot of startup companies where, whether we were private and went public, or we were doing mergers and acquisitions. And at the time, I had already been with this financial services company in San Francisco for about 7 years. And for the outside world, it looked like, I had a great career and a lot of success because I had that that famous corner office that we all strive for when we're climbing up that corporate ladder. And I had a great team. And I will say I loved my job. I loved the business and, our clients, what we were doing. However, at that time, I also can tell you that I had zero personal life. There was no balance. It was all work, all day, every day, including holidays, weekends. There was just no time off because when you achieve a certain level, with those perks comes a lot of responsibility. And I didn't mind it. I loved it because I do love to work and I love the excitement of, whether it's a startup, you have so many decisions to make, or whether it's aggressive growth and you're just, you have to, like we'd say, fail fast and fail often so we can just keep moving forward.
So there's a few things there that I think are interesting. One, I'm a workaholic. I love work. I find a great deal of reward working, but you're right. There can be this thing that with an addictive nature, you can actually be drawn into doing it too much, too often, and it alienates so many other things. So I like how you described it, but I have to ask, you said you had the proverbial work office that was that corner office with the view. Mm-hmm. Tell me, did you actually have a view and what was the view of?
It was downtown San Francisco, close to Union Square and close to the financial district. So many tour buses come right there because it's Bush Street. And the opening to Chinatown was right next door. And so within a block, I could be in Union Square, or another block to the left, I was in going towards Chinatown. And another block, I was going to the financial district. So I was really in the central hub. You walked out the door and you just had so many options of where you were going to walk to and go have lunch or a cup of coffee or a glass of wine.
So. You're reminding me, I actually was there in that area and I went to a Chinese restaurant. My sister-in-law had taken us as a family there and we sat down, we were staring at the menu and the owner walked over, grabbed all the menus because he could see we were being very indecisive. He
Mm-hmm.
said, I'll take care of you. He literally left, didn't take anyone's order, and throughout the course of the evening was just bringing us food. Bringing us,
Mm-hmm.
it was wonderfully, it was delightful. It was a lot more expensive than we ended up thinking we'd pay, but boy, the food was wonderful. So that was great.
What an
That's a good
experience.
experience there. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
So in other words, don't take too long when you're wondering what to order, because the owner, if he's there, might do that. So there's your word of advice for the day.
Cautionary
That was a
tale.
fun thing.
Yeah,
Yes. Well, it
cautionary
ended up
tale.
costing us. It cost us, so it was good.
Mm-hmm.
So you obviously had, as you described, a life-changing moment, and I'm curious for you to share that, because I know so many people have these experiences in their lives, and it does cause us to have that hinge moment, that time
Mm-hmm.
when life changes. Tell us about yours.
So at the time when it was 2010, my grandmother, who was already in her early 90s and lived by herself in San Francisco, and if anybody knows those San Francisco homes, it's like 10,000 steps to get to the front door.
Mhm.
And so she broke her ankle and she needed to go in for surgery and was going to need a lot of physical therapy in order to get her ankle, back to a working condition. And I do have a very close family. We're all very close. We're close to her. And so we were all very involved in the doctor's visits and her physical therapy. But I will say that I had a very close relationship with my grandmother. She raised me. I attribute to her being my first life coach, my first and only, my main life coach.
Wow.
And I feel like she was the teacher, the mentor, my friend, my guiding light of everything that I strive for and that I continue to work towards. And so for me, I felt like I was being torn. I wanted to be there for my grandmother, to be more present with her doctor appointments. And I could get her to do things that the physical therapist could not, because also there was
Wow.
a language barrier. And
Hmm.
so I know that there's so many people that face something, whether it's a family member being ill or a new baby being born, or kids being of a certain age and having certain needs. And for me, I was constantly feeling like I was failing everywhere. When I was at work, I kept thinking I should be with my grandmother. When I was with my grandmother, I was thinking about how I was letting my team down or missing deadlines. And when I drove home and pulled into my driveway, forget it, there was nothing left for my home life. And so I started thinking about how my grandmother had taken care of me and had given so much to me, that now it was a time for me to give back to her. And I had that pivotal self-awareness that I wasn't going to have her for a very long time. She was already in her early 90s, and I did not want to have the regret of having chosen work or my career over her. And I decided to, make the bold decision of, I think that I need to resign my job. I didn't even feel like I could take a leave of absence because there was so many things going on. It wasn't fair. It wasn't like I could take off for 3 months or 6 months. I just did not know. I needed to have more flexibility in my work life so that I could be more present in my grandmother's life. And between making the decision of starting my own consulting business and actually leaving, it took about 6 months because I needed to prepare. But I will tell you, Roger, that most people get stuck in that idea of like, I think I can do it, or I should do it, or I want to start my own business, and actually doing it. It's two different things. And part of it was my network helped me to actually make the leap. And so we can talk a little bit more about that. But I'm happy to say that I was there for my grandmother for many years once I left the corporate world and started my consulting business. Starting a business is hard work, but you can set the tone and make your hours and have the flexibility to carve out what's important and shift the priorities, I should say.
There are so many things in what you just shared there. I've got a number of questions, but before I begin, there is one thing that I want to clarify. I want to emphasize, in fact, you spoke of there being a difference between, thinking about and as well as implementing or starting your business. And that's so true. I think Napoleon Hill said it best when he spoke of the decisiveness of successful people. There comes a moment where you have to make a decision. And once that decisive decision has been made, then it turns from that creative state of what do you want to do, what do you want to accomplish. It moves from creative to implementation, and it takes action. And when you move from that fun, creative, you're just thinking through things, to actually moving forward and creating now with action what you're trying to create, two different mindsets, two different tool sets. And I think you kind of introduced that very well. So let's go back to here you are with your grandmother, your going to be with her. You go into the office, you tell them that you're going to be quitting, leaving. You've got family that's perhaps aware of this. Did you have support as you were making this decision to actually change and disrupt your successful career? What kind of support did you have at that time that said, oh, yeah, staying with grandma and helping her rehabilitate, that's the right thing to do?
I love that you're asking this question because it's often like overlooked. And no, I had support from my partner. He and I have been together for 16 years. At the time, he knew how torn I was, and he was very supportive. He just thought, yeah, I know you can do it. Just go and do what you need to do. However, when you tell your family members who don't really understand your entire vision or your plan, all they see is that you're about to give up a very high, a prestigious, position that comes with a great compensation package and the office and the staff, and all they see is the exterior stuff. And they're coming from a place of concern and love. And they're very open about expressing their opinions of
Mm-hmm.
worry, like, what are you going to do? And just 100 questions of the not really asking, like, is this something that you feel like you can really do? That was not the support there. It was more of like fear-based or concern. And with my team, it was more of, we understand how much you love your grandmother. We know that this is a hard decision for you, but we don't want you to leave us, or, we don't want you to change things. And it was ultimately, it's like how it will impact them individually. And that was a hard thing for me to do as well, because I get very invested in my team and the people that I work with, my partnerships, my, associates. And so that was a very difficult decision to make, because we had all been together for a very long time at that point. But I will tell you that those relationships continued beyond my term when I left.
Very good. It's very significant, the decision you're making to quit that job. And I liked how
Mm-hmm.
you said people from the outside looking in, they see the allure, the
Mm-hmm.
success, the accomplishment, but you're putting family first, and you're being clear in your own mind that she's not going to be around forever. And this is a limited window that you have to be with her. So you are setting your priorities straight. And there's two things that really strike me personally. I know in our culture, we put a lot of emphasis on what someone does as a career. It's one of the very first questions we ever ask anyone
Mm-hmm.
we meet. What do you do for
Yeah,
a
what do you
living?
do for a living? Yeah.
That's right. And so here you were divorcing yourself of the success you had had. But I think you had enough confidence to, believe that everything would turn out fine in the end. After your time with your grandmother, there would be another chapter. Things would be okay. You could build your success again. And I think that's an optimism that a lot of us really could benefit from, because as I've gotten older, I've learned that honestly, a lot of the trials, the tribulations I've personally faced, whether it be professionally or personally, they too do pass, and
Mm-hmm.
there are successes later on. And so I need to really enjoy and make the most of the moment. And having lived with my grandmother and really experiencing something that none of my siblings or her other grandchildren got to experience because I lived with her, I can relate to what you're sharing.
Mm.
There's a bond that I have with my grandmother that's perhaps akin to your own, because I got to know her not as my grandmother, but as truly a friend. I got to know her as an individual with her fun and her creative life, and I cherish those memories. Those are amazing. So I can understand where you're
Oh,
coming from.
what a beautiful experience you had. I think that only those of us who experience something like that can really relate to how deep that bond is. So yeah, I'm glad you got
Yes.
to have that too.
Yeah. This is a great discussion because I'm relating so well to it. So here's the thing: you were with your grandmother. Obviously, something happened there. You could perhaps share how that then evolved. But when it's finished, it meets a certain point where 6 months later, you shared that it was time then for you to now start your business. I'm sure at some point you had no clue what you were going to do next, and obviously at that preceding moment to the 6 months, some aha came of, hey, why don't I go start my business? So I'm
Hmm.
interested. Why did you think you should start a business? Why not jump back into the corporate world? Why not return back to the previous employer and say, hey, is there anything left? Why start a business?
And well, I will clarify that I did not leave my corporate job and take a sabbatical.
Oh,
I quit my job and started the business. And while I was starting the business, I was also then present with my grandmother
okay.
because she didn't need me there 24/7. I will say, I have my aunt and uncles that were also part of our caretaking of her, even though she
Hmm.
was in a facility that was helping. But I started my business while I resigned from my job, and that was on a Friday I left, and on Monday I was already working with a client. And so there was a transition that was very
Oh my
smooth.
heavens.
But that's the beauty of having your own business and also having some boundaries, which we can talk about too with clients, right? But it's like I
Uh-huh.
knew that I could schedule all of my grandmother's appointments or our visits, with my family, that we could all see who was going to be with her when. I scheduled that first before I scheduled whether it was like being on site with clients or working on client work. And so that's the beauty of starting my own business. I didn't wait. I just started a little differently than most people. I had my grandmother was priority, and then the business and the clients.
I appreciate that clarification because I do know that many of the people that we're talking to or that are listening in have that transition. They do kind of typically go from full-time employment, gainful employment with an employer. They have this part-time thing that they're doing on the side with some clients, and they transition into now growing that
Mm-hmm.
primarily as their income. Others, it's not so casual. It is a lot more. I lost my job. What do I do next? I know I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
hire myself. I'm starting a business. Congratulations, I'm the first employee. So there's those two different paths. So
Yeah.
let's talk about this. You started your business, and I know you referred to yourself as a content strategist. So tell me, you're working with the accounting profession. You are emphasizing that you are for them a content strategist. What does that mean?
So to take a step back, when I left my corporate job in 2010, I started a consulting business. And so I was very much that business consultant for startup companies. And I still have that consulting practice to this day. But in 2016, I started to realize that some of my colleagues, and the colleagues being whether it was the owner of a CPA firm or a solopreneur who was an accountant for an independent contractor working in accounting, or the bookkeepers or the tax professionals, they just had a lot of challenges, or they just didn't know that starting a business or running and scaling a business was going to include them wearing many hats. And one of those hats being marketing and the sales guy and the banker and the janitor probably, so the where I saw the need is that before the sale comes the marketing, and part of that marketing was creating content and a framework so that they could know how to not only attract that prospect or a lead, but then nurture it, and ultimately, you're connecting with that lead or that prospect, and then ultimately converting them, and that's where the selling comes in. And there was such a lack of them understanding, and there still is. There's a huge either misconception or misunderstanding of what they can do in order to create the type of content that can then not only attract but connect with the right audience, so that when you go to sell your services, you're not having to convince them of the benefit that you're adding, or you're not having to talk them into and justifying the price that you charge.
So I think what you're describing here is hugely important. And you're right. Many accounting professionals do. I mean, in fact, not even accounting professionals, business owners
Mm-hmm.
struggle to understand this distinction. So let's just take a moment and clarify. Marketing sells. What would you define marketing as, and how would you define sales?
So let me start with the sales, because that's more of a transactional thing for me. The sales is the last point. This by the time you're at the sale, the selling point of getting someone a proposal or discussing the scope of work and the fee. At that point, it's a transactional thing. You're converting your prospect. You're converting the lead. That's the end point. And by the time you get there, you should have already done the job. Meaning, with marketing, it is a way for you to create it's for you to showcase your expertise by showing the prospect or your lead how you can help them, what benefits you can add to their own business or their life, in order to, them to start understanding how it is that you can help them to transform or get through a challenging period, or to elevate their own business or their life. And so in this case, a lot of business owners that accountants and finance professionals encounter, they see accounting or tax preparation as a cost, as an expense. And so it is the job of the business owner to highlight how it is that you as an accountant or a tax professional or a bookkeeper can help to benefit their business or to elevate it or to transform it by saving them money, by lowering a tax bill, by being more strategic about how to set things up correctly to begin with so that you're not paying more later on. So marketing for me is more of like an educational process. It is a time for you to share your knowledge, your experience, your expertise with your prospects, with your audience, and share it in a way that you're constantly attracting the right audience. And that means showcasing and talking about how you can help, what benefits you can add, how you can save them money, or how you can lower an expense. And it's a constant educational content wheelhouse, I should say. And then from there, I would say use something that accountants and finance professionals do not do is like you have to use stories. You have to use case studies, examples during your marketing campaign so that the people you're trying to attract and connect with can see themselves in the stories that you're sharing, can identify their situation in the case study that you just talked about. And so the marketing is sort of like seeding, right? You're planting those seeds, you're nurturing the prospect or the lead, and you're taking them down a journey to when you get to the point of conversion, which is the sales. It's so much smoother because you've already been highlighting what it is that you do, how you do it, what it's like to work with you, what they can expect. And suddenly that is no longer an expense, but rather an investment.
Everything that you described there, I think is so helpful to everyone listening because I think you, in a very succinct way, helped kind of tell that story. You started with the end, the transaction, as you described it,
Mm-hmm.
but you gave everything that led up to that. And I agree. Marketing, as I define it, is basically any and all efforts that you have to make a contact with a potential customer. It's
Mm-hmm.
how you're generating that information as to who it is that's a potential customer. So once that marketing has started and you identify that individual, you're right. You've got to go through now and through the sales funnel, that nurturing process, educate them as to your services, how you're an expert, how they'll benefit. And in that story narrative, they can then relate to, here's how this applies to me. And it moves them to that curiosity of saying, I need to meet with you. We need to talk. I need your help. And then that allows you to explain and, as you described, scope the work, offer your services, and get the new engagement. So great explanation of that. So here's what's interesting to me. I asked earlier about content strategist. Right now, I know a lot of people are interested in having that social presence, particularly how the economy has changed now. We're doing so much more remotely. We're not having that human interaction. We're perhaps not even going into the office. You're maybe working from home and doing these Zoom type meetings and such.
Mm-hmm.
Well, all of that necessitates having a greater online presence. And all of it pushes us towards having this content strategy and having a content marketing um, kind of process as to finding and retaining our clients. So help me understand, first of all, how content could actually, in a social media environment, help grow my business.
Absolutely. And I'm going to say there's two types of content marketing strategy that I work with my clients on. There is the one that is for your existing network. And then there's the
Okay.
one for like your cold audience, on social media channels that maybe nobody knows about. And I'd like to
Can we
start
talk
with,
about both?
yeah, I was going to say, let me start with the network one because I often refer back to, I have a resource on my website. I'm sure we can link to it, but it literally is called Nurture Your Network. And it is about going back and looking at the network that you have spent so many years building up, whether it's through your LinkedIn contacts or on your phone, in your email. You have them scattered all over the place, even the business cards that you collected once upon a time.
Mm-hmm.
And it is about looking back to the network that you've built over the years and thinking about who could be a good recipient or who could be a good person or prospect that you could reconnect with. And so I have this entire resource with 6 different emails that people can go through for reconnecting with that person. It's not just a network. These are people that you connected with, whether you worked with them or you met at a conference or you worked on a certain project or you hired them as a contractor or as a consultant for the whatever business you were working for at the time. These are all prospects. So it's part of your job to nurture those existing network contacts so that you can then reach out. That's a direct marketing approach, right? you're going to, maybe they don't even know that you've started a business. You don't send the first email or the first text message or direct message through LinkedIn and say, hey, we haven't talked in 5 years. I just started a business. If you need my services, here's a link to my website. You don't do that. Please don't do that. Please grab
Good piece of advice.
It's a free resource, and it's like it walks you through the nurturing of an existing network that you want to reignite and reconnect with, especially right now. We have all been sent home or have forced to work remotely. People are so open to reconnecting. One of the tips that I will share is I keep mentioning LinkedIn, but you can do this through Instagram or Facebook, anything that, on your mobile app. A lot of these apps will allow you to leave a voice message through, like, I just did this on LinkedIn last Friday. Every Friday I carve out like maybe 15, 20 minutes and I send a voice message to different contacts, and either I am responding to something they sent me, or I'm just reaching out and checking in. How's it going? How are you doing? Or I read this article. And somebody hearing or seeing that there's a little alert that they got a voice message. What? No, hardly anybody does that. They're going to want to listen to that. And almost everybody that I do that with will respond back. I'm not selling. I'm just checking in, and that just starts the conversation and will probably continue the conversation. And that's how you can also start to gauge whether it's a cold lead that never responded, or a warm lead or a hot lead, with the network that you already have. And that can include a lot of different levels of contacts. So that's a little bit on the network that you already have that you can do the content
Hold on.
marketing. Yeah.
Hold on. I think you're changing gears here, and I want to share something. You put so much energy and effort into making these contacts. For a lot of us, it's maybe networking meetings, it's referrals we've received. It's these individuals that we really don't know yet, and they don't know us, but they are contacts. And honestly, they are potential customers. But too often, we just don't know how to nurture that relationship. How do we actually help them comfortably move towards seeing us as a solution to a need that they may have in the future? And so we've got to create that line of communication and nurture that relationship in such a way that it's comfortable. We're not trying to be intrusive. We're not trying to be salesy. We're just trying to be a contact and someone that they can see as a resource. So I liked how you shared that you just kind of spent some time reaching out to them, leaving them a message that's perhaps not typical. And so it gets their attention. They want to listen. So I like that advice, because we need to consciously consider those business cards that we have, the ones that are on the corner of our desk that we haven't done anything with in weeks or months. How do I re-engage with them? How do I reconnect with them? How do I kind of nurture that relationship? What you just described is an excellent piece of advice. So I appreciate that.
Oh, and I will say, you just said, like, how do we reach out to our network without like annoying them or disturbing them? I got that language from people that I spoke with, other accountants, other financial advisors, and they literally said, how do I nurture my network without being annoying? And so I named my resource that: nurture your network without being annoying. Because we all think that we're bothering someone, but I'm telling you that very first contact is genuinely come from a place of like, how are you doing? Can you believe what's going on? When was the last time you went to our favorite, lunch spot? Just anything to start the conversation again in a genuine way.
I love it. Love it. That is excellent. So now we go to the next group, those that aren't necessarily just names or contacts, they're a little bit more. And tell us about that.
And so now we're talking about going into the social media channels. And one of the main things is we have to educate our accountants and our bookkeepers and our tax professionals, into saying, you can't just show up anywhere and start sharing a link to your website or here are our office hours or book a consultation. You need to warm up your audience. People don't know you. There's no handshake. There's no energy in person. And so when you show up in the online space, you have to put in the work and get the people that you want to attract and connect with to get to know you. And the only way to do that is to create the kind of content that may be interesting to them. It's about your audience, and it is about who it is that you want to attract and help. Who do you help? How do you help them? And what can they expect when they work with you or when they hire you for your services? And so creating content is not a matter of linking to, I see this so much, Roger, it's like a link to a new policy, a new rule, a new article. and there's no point of view, there's no context, there's nothing behind it other than the link to the article,
Mm-hmm.
or here our office hours have changed, or hey, if you need help with this, contact us. So there's no warm up. And the warm up, that's the content strategy, right? What is it that you want? Initially, you want brand recognition, and brand recognition is all about get your audience to get to know you. And the only way that they're going to get to know you is by you sharing your point of view, or by you sharing how it is that you helped another client. Who did you help? How did you help them? What is their life like afterwards? And it sounds so daunting, but it could be as simple as, kind of saying, hey, talk about your office. We're all working remotely now. And while it was rough, it was bumpy in the beginning, we now have hit our stride and we're here to help our clients. As a matter of fact, we recently helped someone with XYZ. If you're thinking that you may need our help, leave us a comment and let's talk about it, or send us a direct message. It's not about book a consultation or, hey, come and see us, or we can help you hire our services. You guys have to share a little bit about what it is that you do and how you do it, and also show up in the places where your audience is at. For most accountants and I would say, financial advisor type of experts, you're I don't know if your contacts or your prospects are going to be on Facebook or on LinkedIn, or are they scrolling Pinterest? You have to go and ask people. You have to, go in and take a poll or send out a survey, or reach out to a handful of people that you can trust that they'll be honest with you and give you that feedback. But you have to, A, show up where they're going to be, where your prospects are at. B, share content that they'll be interested in and not be selling your services and your hours at all times. Share content that's going to be relevant and that's going to connect with them. They're going to see themselves in. And C, I would say this, focus on starting and continuing a conversation. The online space is different than going to a network event. It takes time. You have to be patient and you have to pay attention to what works, what resonates with people, and you're going to tweak and try it again. It's not a once and done, like it's not a crock pot. It's not set it and forget it. It's a learning thing. This online space is very finicky. It changes, it evolves, and we have to evolve with it. And I will say this, if you don't embrace this online social media aspect, I think your business will suffer ultimately, because there's so much opportunity for you to provide services beyond your local community. You can help people in the online space with so many of these tools that we have available to us, but it does start with content. Content is your message. Content is not you putting up an infographic or, sharing a picture of your dog or what you had for breakfast. That is social media for social people who want to be on there to connect on for something else. You're going to use social media to expand your business, and you need to let people know that you're there, that you have a business that can help them. So show up consistently. That's the third tip. It's like you have to be consistent as to, even if you only show up twice a week, be consistent with that schedule. Adopt something that you will be able to embrace and stick with.
So I like what you're sharing here, because one, you're encouraging us to get involved and actually engage with our audience, those people that we have some connection with. And with regards to social media, use that as a way of staying connected. I like that you said it's not just something you automate, you like a crock pot, you said. You have to get engaged. You have to put forth some effort, and then you have the consistency. The consistency is so important because it creates a habit, one that you're able to then follow and stay on task. But at the same time, it's that relevance. In marketing, we learned, at least back in the good old day, how important frequency is. Frequency creates a familiarity, and we do business with people we know, like, and trust. And so with regards to that frequency, you become familiar with that familiarity. You're able to then build off of that your expertise. So I'm loving this advice. So I'm going to break away real quickly here for a sponsor moment, and I'm going to come right back. But first of all, I do want to give recognition to Universal Accounting Center. They're actually sponsoring today's episode by offering a free copy of the book, Red to Black. It's actually a book written for the accounting profession as a how-to guide to help you become, for your clients, a profit and growth expert. It's literally helping you with how-to instructions to offer an engagement service where you're helping them with their cash flow management strategies. Basically, business owners today struggle with the challenges that they face managing so that they have money in the bank. And as a profit and growth expert, you're able to use this how-to guide to ensure that you're addressing the most challenge or most common challenge that business owners face, which is their cash flow management. So get your copy now. You can go to the actual episode description, and in there find a link to go get your free copy of the book Red to Black. And in doing so, have this as a guide to help you offer a new relevant service to your small business clients. Now, or not even just small business, just business clients. Now, with that in mind, I do want to also bring up with Veronica that I think what you're sharing here is so important for us, because I like how you're encouraging us to get involved in that marketing and sales process, to have a system in place that we can use to constantly be interacting with those contacts and finding new clients. But I do want to ask, what are some ways to increase engagement with the content? I think so many of us that have content, we're putting it out there. How can we get better engagement with those people that are actually seeing what we're posting?
So one of the ways is that I call it's like no dead ends. And dead ends means when you don't ask a question in the captions, or, the content that you are sharing, you don't ask a question. So there's no way for your audience to continue the conversation or engage with you. And so we call those calls to action. And it could be a very simple question where it's like, hey, tell me in 5 words, what is your goal for 2021? Or, what was the first time, or what's the biggest expense in your business that you would like to see it decrease? Something that's easy to share, that's not going to make somebody look bad. And so when you have a call to action, it could be at the very forefront of your caption or your message, and then end with it again, so that you're reminding them. Not everybody's going to get to the end. This is a mistake I see often, where you share a piece of content, whether it's a caption on Instagram or on something on LinkedIn, where it's your description to a video or an article, and people they skim. They don't get to the end of what you've written. So if you leave your call to action or your question at the very end, they may not see it. So maybe put it towards the beginning. You start off with it. It's like we always say, when you write some piece of content, you want to have like the hook, the value, and the call to action. But the hook or the title or the headline could be your question or a statement that then you would rephrase and have a question. Make it simple to answer, and make it so that they don't end up doing like looking bad. And I will share this very quickly. Mm-hmm. A long time ago, I had a psychologist, and her practice was primarily with couples. And she shared in a group how she didn't understand why people were not engaging with her content. And she would ask questions like, are you ready to leave? Are you ready to walk out the door? It's just things like, if you were to engage with that, people are like, I don't want people to know that I'm ready to leave or that I'm ready to call it quits, or that, so we said, rephrase that. People are not going to want to look bad if they agree with something, or if they raise their hand, or if they comment. Like some of your call to action could be comment yes below if you agree with this statement, or raise your hand if you can relate to XYZ. People want to feel good about raising. It's like, hey, how would you like to have more energy in your day? Raise your hand if you'd like to have more energy in your day. Raise your hand if you'd like to have a bigger tax refund, or comment heck yes if you know that you want to file your taxes on time this year. I mean, just things like rephrasing a call to action. You can make it, use your sense of humor, ask a question, don't have dead ends. That's how you can also increase your engagement. But also it's about you showing an interest in them, asking a question. People love to talk about themselves. So ask them a question that they would be happy to share something about themselves.
I like that. So what I'm hearing here are some things that I can get excited about, because I do want to engage with our audience. I mean, hence we have a podcast and so forth. But here's a curious question. How do I know it's time to outsource this to someone else? And how do I determine who's the best person to take over that responsibility rather than me? Who can have that voice where I have a personality, a style? How do I now outsource that to someone else? And literally, when do I know it's time to do that?
So let's start with when it's time. When I always encourage every business owner to have a feel for what it takes to actually create content, schedule it, interact with it, engage, because only then can you have a sense of, can you put like a value to it when you're outsourcing it? Mm-hmm. Because then you can also tell the other persons, like, here are the platforms I want to show up in. Here's the message or the feel that I want to convey. You need to do it yourself. in order to then almost like appreciate the amount of effort and time that goes into creating that kind of content, publishing it, and also repurposing it. And then,
Exactly.
so that you can extend the life of it and engaging it. So it's time to do that when you feel like it's taking over your life, you're feeling overwhelmed, frustrated that you're not getting the results that you want, but you have a really good idea of what it is that you want your content to do for your business. And so what you want to do is maybe start looking for, I'm going to just share what one of the things that I do and that I recommend to my clients is you want to get a recommendation from other people, other business owners. And usually you can do that through either Facebook groups or other business owners. Who do you use for your content creation or your content strategy or your social media management? If you get those referrals, get more than one, interview them, give them a small project, give the exact same project to more than one, because what you want to do is you're testing them for how do they communicate? Do they meet deadlines? Are they resourceful? Do they need you to hold their hand? So you kind of come up with a criteria of what you're looking for that would make a really good team member. You're not going to hire them as an employee. They're going to be like, whether it's a firm or an independent contractor that does a lot of social media for different clients. What you're looking for is for someone to be resourceful. And I will tell you, in addition to having this criteria list of, just like going down the list of you're looking for things to, communication, deadlines, resourcefulness, you're also going to ask them to look at their other content that you have already published to get a feel for your voice. There are times when I've had people help me with different content projects. I don't remember if I wrote it or if they wrote it. That's how good they became at learning my tone. And I have a bank of stories that they can draw from. The stories, either I recorded them with an audio file or in a video, or I wrote them. And so they get to hear my voice, my tone. So they have to do a little bit of homework. And again, in order to outsource it, I gave a small project. I said, hey, create five social media pieces for me to share on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and on Instagram. And I gave them just a little bit of an idea. It was up to them to then come up with what it is that they were going to give me at the end. I used places, like I said, like a referrals that other people gave me, but I also went to Fiverr, Fiverr.
Oh, yes.
And I hired a few of those. And I also used Upwork. And again, I was looking for someone that I could then hire longer term, again, not as an employee, but to be part of my team as an independent contractor. And yeah, I was lucky. It took some effort on my end. And then I had to go and look at everything that they handed in and what I loved best. And then I had to make a decision. Does this person have the enough qualities or enough, does he or she meet the criteria enough that then I can train the rest? And that's part of how I did it and how I recommend you do it as well.
I love it. I've experienced what you're describing. So having gone through that all, I like the advice, and I think that's sound advice for all of us to consider. So let me do this. I'm going to go ahead and wrap some things up and share a summary of what I think we've discussed. But real quickly, I want to again mention our sponsor. It's Universal Accounting Center, making available to you a copy of the book Red to Black. It's the how-to guide for accounting professionals to offer quality accounting services addressing the most common challenge business owners face, which is cash flow management. And for that reason, it actually allows you to become what is referred to as a business first responder. The businesses are struggling with their cash flow. You can come in and assess their situation, address their situation, and turn things around, taking it from red to black. Get a copy of this Red to Black book for yourself and use these principles within your business with your clients by going to the episode description and actually getting a free copy of Red to Black. And now, as a summary, Veronica, I just think what you shared is amazing. One, your story as to starting your business is something that I think a lot of us can relate to. There are those life-changing moments where it does cause us to pivot, and you did so, and over the years have adapted. I love that you're able to help accounting professionals actually see the value in having a social presence to nurture the lists that they have, engage with new audiences, and more importantly, kind of nurture that relationship to the point of getting a new sale. Now, with that in mind, I think your advice that you shared earlier as to how to have that online presence, how to leverage the content that you have so that you can engage more with your clients, asking questions. I think you said it best when you just summarized it as a 3-step process. You have to have a hook. Why read what I'm looking at as I'm scrolling? you have to have some value. I've benefited from now looking at your content, but then also why or what do I do next? And it's that call to action. Now what? And so with that in mind, I think you gave us some good succinct things that we can implement as we're actually trying to have a social presence, whether it be blogging or posting. We actually now have something that we can use as a guide to do so effectively. So do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to share with everyone?
I would just like to share that I know that the content creation aspect of having your business can be daunting. It can feel daunting, but it doesn't have to be. When we start our business, we don't think that we're going to have to be the sales and marketing department in addition to actually performing the service. And so there are so many tools available to you. There are so many resources. I know that I have quite a few resources on my website. You're welcome to come and grab them by going to veronicasagastume.com. Grab the free resources and get started, but take action. We started this episode by talking about making a decision and moving forward. And that's the whole thing. Take imperfect action is better than not taking any action at all.
Yes. If you're paralyzed, nothing's going to be happening. You've got to take action. So with that in mind, let me just go ahead and wrap up a few things here and begin by thanking Veronica for her time. I think this was an excellent discussion of so many things that are applicable to what we're all experiencing as we're running our businesses. And I think with regards to social presence, it's something that is something we could all do better at and would love to actually implement these strategies. So remember this, regarding your attempt and efforts, there is a turnkey process to starting and building a successful accounting business. So with that in mind, remember that Universal Accounting Center is here to help you. You can be in business for yourself, but not by yourself, because if it's about accounting, it is universal. So take a moment, listen to our other episodes. Be sure to subscribe to this podcast. And with that in mind, you'll be receiving on a regular basis new and informative information to help you successfully build the premier accounting firm in your area. For more information on how you can apply these principles in your business, you can also visit us at universalaccountingschool.com or give us a phone call at 801-265-3777. Do take care, have a great day, and be safe out there.